it's my job. Literally, my job is being gay. So like now when people are like, why are you doing all that flamboyant stuff? It's like, this is literally my livelihood. Like, while the person who is admonishing me could be struggling for finding passion in their life, and they always talk about how they hate what they do and they only do it to scrounge up a few pennies so they could afford rent. Here I am living my authentic life and also using that as a way to help people and help myself. So it has helped me feel more comfortable being very outwardly gay and being unashamed about it.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Unapologaytic podcast. My name is Pierre, I'm your host and the founder of the ethical gay brand Unapologaytic. Today joining me is Kevin Kasir. He's a mindset coach based in LA, dedicated to the queer community. And there's one bit in your Instagram bio that I really love. It says, admire yourself mentally, physically, and emotionally. So hopefully we'll talk a lot about that today. Mm-hmm. And welcome, Kevin, and thanks for being here. I've got so many questions for you.
Yeah, thank you, Pierre. I'm so happy to, speak to you. I'm really excited about it.
Great. So the first thing, I read in your story highlights that you knew you were gay when you were 3. Mm-hmm. Right. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, it's just something like I always knew I was attracted to men. And what made me realize it was, just seeing hot guys on TV. But what also made me realize it wasn't normal to be attracted to men, or at least in society's eyes, is my older brothers would talk about hot girls on Baywatch. And I noticed they wouldn't talk about these muscular, hairy-chested men. And I was like, they must see them, but they're intentionally not talking about them. They're only talking about the girls. So when I was at that young age of 3, I noticed, okay, guys are hot, and also guys aren't supposed to talk about guys being hot.
So how did that translate? Did you sort of understand that there was something wrong with you, or there was something you couldn't talk about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always knew, ever since that point, like, if there was a good-looking guy or if there was something I wanted to do that was, like, not what guys are supposed to do, I knew it was going to be looked at as weird. Thankfully, ever since I was a kid, I was always doing what I wanted, like listening to Britney Spears or playing girl characters in video games or hanging out with mostly girlfriends. But it was something I always thought about, like in the way I talked, the way I walked, even since I was like young, and making sure, like, if someone says like, oh, this person is hot, to not say like, what about this guy? Because that would be like a telltale sign. So it did affect like how I thought about things and how I acted.
Was there anybody you could talk about that around you?
Well, I really didn't talk about it openly until I was 20. That's when I came out. And I talked about like all the other things, like the Britney Spears and those things, but I just wouldn't say I'm gay until I was 20. There was actually even a time in high school where there was this guy I was really, really into. And I was telling my friends, I was like, I would like hook up with them or something. Like, I'm not gay, but maybe like just for him. Like, I told probably at least like 5 people about that. And I guess my excuse.
How did they react?
They were pretty fine about it. Like, I think my friends always knew I was gay. Like, people asked me if I was gay like every other day. And at least in like up to high school. And they reacted fine because I think they just wanted to like take my word for it. And it was almost like, oh, okay, well, let's just believe him. And one interesting thing is actually in my school, there were a lot of girls that had like same gender attraction who were normally only into guys, but there was like one girl they were into. There was 3 separate occasions of that, of like a girl who dated guys all the time, and then they ended up all dating this one same really like masculine girl. So I almost felt like they gave me permission to say like, I'm not gay, but I'm only into this one guy, just like those girls who were into one girl.
How about that guy? Did he know that you fancied him?
No, he was like a very devout Christian guy. He was like such a gorgeous looking guy, but like he even highlighted verses in his Bible about how women are like less than men and stuff like that. So it was interesting because, you know, he would want to spend the night and sleep in the same bed, even though we had like separate beds. But I was so timid to ever make a move. So even though he was giving signs like he could be open to it, I was so scared that it was a trap. And if I did anything to show my attraction, that he would end up like telling the whole school, like, guess what Kevin did? Like, I was doing this on purpose just so I could like spread his info. So that was like a very like anxious thought of mine that stopped me from ever being obvious.
Did you have any role models when you were growing up?
Well, not specifically gay role models, but Oprah Winfrey is definitely a huge role model of mine. She's actually, we have the same birthday, January 29th. And when I found that out at a really young age, I like formed my personality around it. Like just the fact that she is so genuine and she has conversations just like the one you and I are having. And she's really known for, on her talk show early, crying while interviewing someone, because interviews before were so robotic. And of course, Oprah also had like a history and a past that was not easy. So the main thing about Oprah is I really just love her way of conversation and connecting. So, I mean, yeah, she's for sure a huge role model ever since I was young and to this day, and probably till I die, and even after that.
Nice. And what did you learn from leading groups, support groups at UCLA?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I led support groups for anxiety and depression. And it was very interesting because I had to do the online therapy myself to be able to lead the groups. And it was very self-led. I enjoyed it. I liked doing that work for myself. And it was interesting seeing the range of people's experiences on it. Some people were really reluctant to do the work. Some people were taking it really applying it to their trauma. When I did the therapy, I related it a lot to like taking action, very similar to life coaching because it was self-led. But when leading groups for anxiety and depression, it was just interesting to see the full range of how much life affects people. Some people could get really brought down. Some people, things are medium, and some people they're like coasting through life and they are just taking all the tools that they want. And that's, you know, what I would hope. I'm glad because it was a group for free and it was for students at UCLA. So I think we were able to get the full range of people rather than in other situations where people might think therapy is only if you feel like you're crazy or your life is an absolute mess, when it could really help anyone in the world.
Yeah, that's also my experience, where it's not just when I'm struggling, it's anytime.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really good to hear that. And also in your Instagram bio, it said, well, not the bio, but the story highlights, you mentioned healing the gay community.
Yeah.
So what do we need healing from?
Well, you know, people, especially because I post on social media so consistently every single day, I get lots of comments. And of course, there are comments about people talking about the toxic gay community or how every gay guy is this way. And of course, I mean, I love the gay community. I love being gay. It's who I am. And that's why I'm a gay life coach. So I personally think that a lot of people place these bad traits on a whole group. when really they could just find their tribe in the community. So what I mean by healing the gay community is I want to help them realize that we could have a good self-esteem even if there are other people who are taller or more gorgeous or who have more followers or more anything. It doesn't make us any less unique and special in our own way. So I want to get rid of that envy feeling. We'll always be jealous. Jealousy, I think, is when you want something that another person has, but I think envy is when you wish to take it away. So I'm always jealous when I see tall guys. I wish I was tall, but I'm not envious because I don't want to take away their height. Them being short isn't going to make me taller. But another thing I also think of when I think of making a gay community again, I always like type community in caps in that sentence, is because I do want to create this true feeling of like a queer family and community. I just think of back in the day when they had to be so secretive with like the handkerchief codes and all those things. It probably really felt like a tight-knit community because they would know the ins and outs of each other and they would have each other's backs. Nowadays, we don't have to like move in secret, but when you go to a bar, it's so easy to feel alone in a room full of people. So I really love when I'm squeezing past people, instead of just having my head down or bumping into everyone, I'll say, excuse me. I'll say, oh, I love that necklace. Or, oh my gosh, I love how much you're dancing. And I was still squeezing through. It's not like I'm stopping to have a conversation, but it's just a nice way of building that community feeling. So even though I didn't ask that person's name, I'll barely remember their face. Now both of us have this feeling that, oh, this space is a connecting space. And maybe next time we see each other, we will remember. I'll be like, oh, you were that one person who was dancing like really hard. And they're like, yeah, what's your name again? Like, that's what I want people to do. And I hope that everyone I talk to in real life, because I do this in real life, I hope that they end up spreading that as well and noticing it's not as scary to talk to people who you're not just trying to take home later.
Yeah, that's very true. Actually, you know what? I never thought about it because I'm very much an introvert. And the thought of talking to somebody, especially somebody I've never met before, or in the environment of a gay club, even if there's no initial attraction or anything like that, but there's always this thing, oh my God, if I talk to him, he might think that I want to chat him up or something. And that really scares me.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, you are in charge of Unapologaytic. And of course, that means like you feel very connected to the community, right?
Yeah.
And for me, if I'm in a room full of people and I know someone else is queer, especially if they're a gay man, I feel this instant bond. Even if I don't know them, I know some gay men might actually be repelled by that, but I do feel this magnetic, like, oh, this is my sister type of thing. And it's so interesting to hear that, even for you, like feeling that introversion would come into play. I guess I would be interested to hear from you. Do you think if you were in a room full of people and there was one gay guy and then a bunch of people of other sorts, women, all this, people of different ethnicities, would the gay person be the person you feel like the most natural, unspoken bond with?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I mean, I would talk to whoever I'm closest in terms of identity. So, for example, I identify as a black gay man. So I would speak to either somebody who's gay and somebody who's black, and then anyone. And then I would just trust my instinct to see, right, who do I want to speak to?
Yeah, it is something to, like, for example, I'm Iraqi, and that's something that my family we weren't around many other Iraqi people. So even though that is a part of who I am, it doesn't feel like a large part of like the things I do. So, some people might think I look Iraqi. I think most people do. Some people might not, but it's not something where if I meet another Iraqi person, I automatically feel this like, oh, did you do this as a kid? Did you do that as a kid? And I know a lot of people think that about me, especially if they're just trying to hit on me. They're like, oh, you're Middle Eastern too. Like, but, you know, if I had to say like how much my sexual identity is, it's like more than double my cultural identity. But of course, they all play a part.
Yeah, it's the same for me. I live really far away from where I'm from originally. But do you have you always lived in the US?
Yeah. So I was born in Northern California. My parents were born in Iraq, and they moved here soon before my oldest brother was born. They met in America, actually. But yes, then after growing up in Northern California in a town called Vacaville, I moved down to Southern California in LA when I went to UCLA. And then I've been here ever since.
Cool. Are you enjoying it still?
Yeah, I love it. I've been here for almost 10 years at this point. And I mean, I was hoping to get a house this year, which of course interest rates, but I am planning on staying here forever. Like, I've met so many close people. It's also very easy for me to meet more people here because through the people I've met, and also the fact that there's such a open gay community here, it's really easy for me to meet more people, even if I feel like, oh, I don't have any friends, there's no one I could call. I could just go out there and be like, you know, I could talk to someone for tonight. And maybe if I don't become their bestie, at least I don't have to feel alone in this really busy city.
Yeah, because it is busy. Mm-hmm. And you also mentioned doing some work on yourself. What did you do?
Well, you know, I feel like I'm always working on myself. I feel like that is the reason I have this confidence and happiness and fulfillment in life, is because I never feel like I'm sitting passively. Even if I have, you know, a span of time where I was unemployed or I don't know, whatever, I'm always having a goal. It could be a simple personal goal, like, oh, I want to start being more funny, or I want to start learning more about the afterlife, or I want to start exercising. I just do these random things. One goal is I started doing Kegels just in the car. Like, that takes almost no effort. All it takes is like the intentional work of lifting your pelvic floor. But yeah, doing work on myself, especially one of the most important things was me. I do feel like I have a porn addiction because
me too.
I think a lot more people do than they think or would like to admit. There are some times I could spend like 12 hours searching and wasting my day. And it really, for me, I do it as a way to avoid either responsibility or stress, or sometimes avoid feelings of rejection or not feeling enough. And it's almost my way of like castrating myself, kind of, where if I'm getting sexual thoughts and I'm like, oh, but maybe I can't get this guy, I could almost like take myself out of the game.
There's a video.
Yeah. And also, like, you know, if I climax, I'm not going to have that interest anymore. So I won't be going on those apps and trying to find someone in that moment. Or if I go to a bar and if I do that before, then I won't have this sexual thought driving me and giving me this feeling of like people are out of my league. So over 2 years ago, it's kind of a joke. People talk about No Fap November. Fapping means like, it's an internet speak for jacking off. And I took it seriously that November 2020. I actually went 27 days with no porn, no jacking off, and it was very, very transformative. Ever since then, I've been trying to lower it. I haven't been able to quit like cold turkey, but I've gone like almost 2 months. I go on some really good streaks. And the fact of the matter is, now when I do look it up, I look it up for maybe less than an hour, which is such an improvement compared to 12 hours. And also, I look it up so much less frequently. I feel like on average, I look it up maybe like less than once a week. So, you know, if we could just flip a switch and not be addicted to something, that would be great. But we really do have to celebrate these wins.
Yeah, exactly.
So for
Yeah.
me, when I started to make an intentional effort to not watch it anymore, I had to replace those many, many hours with other habits. So it was only like maybe 1 or 2 weeks after I stopped watching porn that I started to exercise. I started to actually work out because I didn't really before. Then eventually that led to me doing Kegels, Korean facial exercises. Then after like 2 months, I started to like be intentional about what I eat and tracking like the protein amounts and preparing my own food. And it just snowballed further and further and further. Making that intentional effort of not watching porn, even though I still watched it here and there, I was replacing that bad habit with so many other good habits. I cannot imagine where I would be today. And I would absolutely not feel as confident in who I am if I wasn't making all of those steps that I was neglecting before. Even though I was confident before, I broke the barrier after trying to stop watching porn.
It's a different kind of confidence, isn't it?
Yeah, because I very much had the mental confidence. I felt like, I'm always working on myself. If there's ever a problem in my life, I don't complain about it for very long before I take action. And I have great friends in my life, and that's a reflection of me, as a matter of fact. So, like, I am showing off a part of me that is, a positive part, and that's why I have those people in my life. And also, I intentionally don't keep people in my life that aren't that. But then after, truly we're more than just our thoughts. After I started to cut out porn and exercise and eat right, I felt confident even more confident in the mirror. I also felt confident that I wasn't going to live in chronic pain as I got old, because I would wake up with muscle aches at night in my shoulder and neck. And I haven't had that. I've had that once in 2 years since working out. I used to have it once a month at least. And that's a fear of mine. I'm not afraid of dying, but I am afraid of chronic pain and dying a slow, painful death. If it's quick and painful, that's okay with me. So,
Yeah, I'd rather that.
yeah, working out and strengthening my muscles has truly gotten rid of that very existential fear, minimized it, that very existential fear of mine of possibly dying in a slow way. Because now I know, like, if I keep this up until old age, my muscles won't be like breaking down as much as other people who never exercise and probably need to take pills just to be able to move their arm in the morning.
Yeah, that's also something I was surprised to observe in myself when I stopped watching porn. Like you, I started recovery in November 2020. And I didn't even know I was addicted to porn, actually. First of all, I didn't even know porn addiction was a thing, let alone my thing. But when I did stop, then I realized that I could remember my dreams all of a sudden. And I felt like I had more space in my mind to think.
Mm-hmm.
I was so surprised.
That's so interesting that we did it at the same time. It's those random things that make me imagine like there's more connection in the world than we could see or feel. But I would actually be interested to know, like, what inspired you to think I should make a change in this?
I was trying to have sex, and it was impossible to have an erection.
Mm.
So I thought, what's going on? Because when I watch porn, I have no problem. So what's the difference? And then one thing led to another. I ended up in a 12-step for porn addiction.
Mm.
And then I understood the symptoms, and I'm still working on, not watching porn and just getting on with my life.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a very similar reason too. Part of it is, this idea in the gay community of being like hypersexual and hooking up all the time. And I just wasn't very interested in it. And I was very self-conscious about my sexual prowess. So I tried to stop watching porn for that same reason too. I wanted to be able to have better erections, to feel like I was like raring to go, like just a wild animal. And thankfully, like it started with that, and it's ended up becoming more internal, like replacing bad habits with good ones. But for me too, it started with that external validation of wanting people to be like, you're a good sexual partner.
No, you're the best. That's what I was after.
Yeah. I mean, the best is subjective. I'm sure there are people that think you're the best, but not 100% of the people in the world could think that.
Of course, but that was my ego talking, because I was so, well, I still am insecure, but less now than before. Before that was horrible.
Yeah, and we all have insecurities, but I wouldn't say like I am insecure. Like I have insecurities and you have insecurities, but you're Pierre. You're not, hi, I'm insecure. You have insecurities, just like you have bills and debt and many, many things. Well, maybe you don't have debt. I don't know. But
I do have this.
So sometimes I think it's good to separate who we are from something we're feeling.
Yeah, that's very true. That's now you speak like a life
coach. Well, if we got to life coaching,
coach,
we would talk more about the action steps. But anyway, go on.
So if you could coach anyone in the world, who would it be?
Oh my gosh. Well, I guess if you're talking about a specific person, I don't have like a specific person in mind. Of course, I would love to talk to Oprah, but that would be more almost like, not even she would be coaching me, but she naturally does that. But if I could coach anyone, I guess what I would think of as like a framework or a mold of a person. I could coach anyone, so I'll start off with that. But what I would ideally like to work with is gay men who have a lot going for them, whether it's their looks, their status, or their money, or whatever, but they internally hate themselves. That is so common, especially around LA. And there are these guys around here that have so much more than me, and I want them to be aware of that. I want them to know that like they could feel more confident than I do, or maybe the same. But like if I feel this way and I don't have as much, I want them to be there, because them being confident, it's once again not going to take anything away from me. Guys who are good looking and not modest or confident, it doesn't make my life worse unless my ego is getting in the way, thinking, wow, I can't believe he's good looking and he admits it. Like what's a good looking guy supposed to say, that he's ugly? If people constantly tell him like 100 times a night, like, is he supposed to try to say he's not good looking? That's unreasonable. And I really don't like this idea that when we are skilled or good in something, it could be also a skill. If someone's really good at helping someone, or someone's really good at singing, I don't like this idea that it's cocky or arrogant to say the good things. There's a way to be confident without belittling other people. And I do truly think that people trying to force themselves to be modest naturally chips away at their confidence and therefore affects how they feel. So I would love to coach gay men who have a lot going for them, and people tell them they have a lot going for them, but they just can't understand it. They can't get it through their head. Hear it. Yeah.
That's my experience of therapy, is that it really helps me to let compliments in.
Yeah. And I think part of that,
not just that, but it prevents me from looking for validation outside of myself.
Yeah. And giving compliments to yourself, which we all need to do.
Yeah. So compliments from outside are just the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
But, and it's always nice to hear, but it's not what I'm looking for. And
yeah.
that's life-changing.
Yeah. Because in the end, there are things that we care about. So something that was in the book, The Velvet Rage, which I know is like a very common book that gay men read, it talks about authentic validation. And it's this idea that when you get complimented on something you truly care about, it's authentic validation. And when you're complimented on something you don't truly care about, it actually makes you feel more empty. So, for example, if I really enjoy when people tell me I make them feel very genuine and open and like they could share anything without judgment, that's what authentically validates me. That openness that people tell me I have. If someone just talks about how I'm so hot and they're pretty much drooling when they're talking to me and they want to take me back home, I mean, I'm not looking for the validation. I feel very, very confident in that. Like, this isn't me being modest. This is me saying, like, I don't need more of that. So when people validate me in that, it kind of bores me, honestly. It makes me be like, okay, like, I get it. Like, when's this conversation going to end? Because I'd rather it not be focused on just the way I look and like what you could get from that. So that's an example of like inauthentic validation. And some people search for that physical validation when really they want to be told that their music is good, or they want to be told that they light up a room with their jokes. But maybe they're just focused on thinking that if they get compliments on their body or their face, that's going to be the thing. But they don't know that's not authentic for them.
And how do you know if somebody's not right for you to coach?
Well, you know, if someone is really not right for me to coach, it would be something like they maybe resent me or they don't believe in doing work for themselves. So if they, for some reason, would think that I'm going to do everything for them, because the fact of the matter, coaching, therapy, dieting, exercise, actually, exercise you do like 1 hour a week, but a day. But all those things you do at 1 hour a week, but then you have how many hours in the rest of the week and the rest of the day. So if someone imagines that 1 hour meeting with me is going to be the thing that completely turns their life around, they're incorrect. The 1 hour meeting with me will put them on track, and it's their job to stay on that track. Because no matter how good in that 1 hour of coaching I do, if they, for the rest of the 24 times 7 hours, are really pushing that train off the track, then no coach, not even Oprah Winfrey, could keep them on there. So I could totally work with people who are reluctant to do the work, who think it would be hard. But if someone is absolutely not willing to do it and they don't take accountability in their life at all, that wouldn't be a fit. Maybe we could develop that accountability during our calls. And of course that happens. But if they genuinely plan on never taking accountability for the rest of their life and just blaming their childhood or blaming the people around them or blaming the gay community or blaming finances or blaming all these things people say, it's not going to work out.
Yeah, that makes sense. What do you think is the most challenging part of being a life coach?
You know, I really, really enjoy it. The actual coaching sessions, I feel so natural at it because ever since I was a kid, like, I don't know, in like third grade, I was pretending to be a psychologist with my friends.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. So, oh my God. So I would be so interested to hear. It sounds like me and you are more similar than I thought. Me and my friends, like,
We're sisters.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. From across the world.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would like pretend to have a notepad on the playground, and my friends would lay back and say things like, my mom died during childbirth, my dad ran out. It was all fake. It was made up. But like, we would do that. And yeah, with coaching, I think, like I said, it just feels natural. But if I had to say like one thing about it that feels challenging, I guess it would just be holding back my intensity, because I do like to be very fierce. And to me, some things seem very fundamental. But for someone who might be going through depression or hasn't done things for themselves most of their life, and they're coming to me to build that accountability in them, unpacking one box from their house could sound a lot more daunting, even though it might take 10 minutes. Or sending an email, to me, sounds easy, but to someone else, it could be hard. So something I have to keep in mind is how much other people can put on their plate. With our weekly sessions and the action steps at the end, I have to keep in mind that what I think is easy might not be what this person thinks is easy. And usually when that happens, after the first session, if they come back to the second session and they haven't done it, I automatically think like, okay, I need to, this week's goals, they're going to be a step back. Not a step back, but they're going to be not as long of a step. But yeah.
And what have you learned about yourself since you've been a life coach?
Well, what I've learned about myself is that this is what I want to do, even when I'm tired and sleep deprived and all these things. It just feels so natural. Like, it doesn't feel like I need to be on to life coach. I just do it. I could do it in my sleep, I guess. But yeah, I just love it. Like, these are the conversations I have, like when I'm at a bar, when I'm sober or not sober. I love having these types of conversations with people. Another thing that I don't know about learned, but something that I have gained from social media actually is posting my gay story on there and all these things. Since I post every day, my family sees it. And the truth is, I am out to my family. They all know, but I act much, much, much more open with my friends than my family. I almost describe it as a business relationship with my family. Like, I tell them what I need to know. They want to know me more. They're such a loving and supportive family, but I feel like I almost still act like the bratty teenager of just the gray rock method, they say, when you like don't really show your personality to people as a way to avoid things. That's like what I do with my family. And after posting on social media every day, my brothers following me, they see what I'm talking about. And they're so like, oh my God, it's so nice to hear these things about you. I never knew this about you. I'm so excited to hear this about you. And I would never purposely tell them these things. But the fact that I'm doing it for my business and to put my work out there for gay men, I'm not going to block my brothers. And it actually has ended up helping me feel more comfortable with my family. And it also, even as a gay life coach, like, it's not like I'm perfect. It has helped me feel more comfortable being gay, because now when people say, like, in my family or elsewhere, like, oh, I'll pray for you, I hope things change. Or people say, like, why is being gay like everything you talk about? I'm like, it's my job. Literally, my job is being gay. So, like, now when people are like, why are you doing all that flamboyant stuff? It's like, this is literally my livelihood. Like, while you might be like struggling for finding passion in your job, not you, Pierre, of course, but while the person who is admonishing me could be struggling for finding passion in their life, and they always talk about how they hate what they do and they only do it to scrounge up a few pennies so they could afford rent. Here I am living my authentic life and also using that as a way to help people and help myself. So it has helped me feel more comfortable being very outwardly gay and being unashamed about it.
I can so relate to that, because Unapologaytic is all about dealing with the shame of growing up gay, like Alan Downs says. So, and it's only a few months ago that I realized that actually my whole life has been run by shame, really, or at least my whole adult life, or even before that.
I think
it's really empowering to own ourselves, or at least to own myself, and to own my shame of being gay, talking about it.
Yeah. I'm so glad you felt that, because that's what we as queer people grow up with. This shame, this feeling that something is wrong with us and we have to hide it. and we become these trained actors putting on a facade, trying to fit in and people please. Like, that's a word people say a lot right now, people pleasing. And we have to grow up and realize, oh, these things I would do, it's not because I want to do it, it's to get rid of shame and to push that shame aside.
Yeah, it's so it's everywhere in society, especially now. I think now the focus has shifted, probably maybe from gay men to trans people at the moment.
Yeah,
really. But obviously, it's not because I feel less in the spotlight with regards to hate that I should rejoice. There's still a lot of work to do, so that we can all be happy and we can all be ourselves.
Yeah. And my personal opinion is, I have my rainbow flag behind me, which does have the colors for black, brown, and the trans colors. So, of course, I support trans rights. I know many trans people in my life, and I've known trans people before they transitioned, and then they came out to me, which was a very interesting experience. I personally believe that once politics or stuff, once people start attacking trans people, and if they feel like they won, it's not like they're going to stop at trans people. Next, they're going to come to men. Because the fact of the matter is, these people who don't support us, they think that Caitlyn Jenner is still a man. They don't see trans people as real trans people. They still see them as a gay person. So it's really mind-boggling to me, the gay people that think this is a separate issue from us. Really, trans people are a stepping stone to attacking gay people next. And I'm not saying trans people are attacking us. I feel like I need to be so clear. Trans people are not attacking gay men. Trans people do not think being cisgender is wrong. I mean, maybe someone met a trans person who said, oh, you're just like all the other gays or whatever. That doesn't mean every trans person thinks that way. It also doesn't mean when you meet one Karen at a store, some lady who's really rude to a manager, it doesn't mean every white lady with that haircut acts that way. So it really frustrates me. And I just imagine, like, if these people met more trans people in their life and if they were more in the queer community, would they have these thoughts? And I feel like they wouldn't, because they have this idea that all trans people act a certain way. But the more trans people you meet, just like the more gay people you meet and the more straight people you meet, the more you realize everyone is different.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's right. Very well said. So if you had one piece of advice to give to someone looking to improve their life, what would it be? Not that there's a magic wand, but what would be the first step?
If someone needed to improve their life, my one overarching piece of advice would be take action quicker. Take action when you feel like you need to take action. I used to think the opposite of overthinking was not thinking. But actually, the opposite of overthinking is making decisions quickly. So, if someone is in their bed at night overthinking for hours, maybe what they need to do is go eat and then come back, or go to the bathroom and come back, or type up a draft of a message that they're scared to send tomorrow. They could draft it up in their notes. Then when it's out of their head and they feel like they took action rather than passively waiting, they will not overthink as much. So there's many things that bring us worry, whether it's our bodies, whether it's the way we treat people, whether it is finances. And my advice is, if there is something you are unhappy with, think of an action you can take to get you a teeny step closer to what you want, and take action. Even if you are not at your goal spot, just like with me and porn, I have not quit cold turkey, but I am taking action to minimize that. And every time I take a step back and relapse and watch it, I always think, what is the next thing I can add onto my itinerary to work on, whether it's doing a journal whenever I have these thoughts, calling a friend when those thoughts come up, or maybe I'm searching it more now because I really need to do something else in my life that I'm putting off. So maybe I need to do that one thing in my life that I'm putting off that's completely unrelated to porn. And then therefore I won't be stressed about this big monster I've created that I try to mentally avoid with this overstimulating video rabbit hole online. So the piece of advice I'd give is think of an action you can take that will minimize that worry and take that action. That little action, no matter how little it is, that will change the fact that you know you have more control than you think. And you're not relinquishing control to the world and being at mercy of the things around you and saying, woe is me, my body is not the way it looks, no one likes me, no one enjoys my personality, I have no friends. It's like, are you just going to complain or are you going to do something? Because there are steps you can do.
Because it's so easy to focus on the amount of work or the gap between where we are right now, or at least where I am right now, and where I want to go. Mm-hmm. So if I focus on that gap, then I just say, oh my God, you know what, I just won't bother. But then, as you said, if I focus on the small action, tiny one, as you said, maybe just get up and type a message or something, or just write down. Journaling for me works really well.
Yeah.
Or if it's not, if it's the right time, call somebody. That's the beauty of recovery, I find, is that there's a real network of people around who know what it's like. And we really help each other out like that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that piece of advice.
Well, thank you, Pierre.
And what's the first step in admiring yourself mentally, physically, and emotionally?
So a lot of people, they come to me for life coaching and they say, I want to be this version of myself that I think of. I want to love myself. I want to do all this. And it is, you can't just flip a switch and say, love yourself. Just like you can't flip a switch and not be addicted to porn, or you can't flip a switch and not have anxiety. So the first step would be taking some kind of action for anything. When it comes to admiring yourself mentally, physically, and emotionally, even if you're not focusing on that specifically, if you take one little step towards something you want in life, you will admire yourself a little more, whether it's one of those three categories. And then eventually, when you build a habit out of taking a little step, focusing less on the huge gap between you and your goal, but really just focusing on that one very realistic step in front of you, you will naturally start to reach all of your goals. And when you reach all of your goals, you will, of course, admire yourself. If you reach all of your goals, you're not going to be like, wow, I hate who I am. You're going to be like, wow, I did it. Maybe I have more goals because I'm always going to be moving forward, but I'm doing things. So it really all relates back to that. And that's what life coaching is all about. It's about taking a step, taking an action step. So that's really it. Focusing on one little step. It doesn't even have to be specifically about like, I need to work out and do this. It could be anything. Like, I need to message my mom because I haven't talked to her for a few weeks. And that step will naturally translate to another step eventually, because you're not worrying about this long to-do list that could have thousands of little tasks that you forget because you just add them and add them and add them every day and never do something. So yes, admire yourself mentally, physically, and emotionally, rather than think of it as this big monster where you have to do 100 things. Just focus on the next thing you need to do.
Yeah, I really agree with you, because one of my teachers is Louise Hay, and she says, there are lots of different areas. For example, it can be diet, it can be physical health, or whatever else you want to take action on. don't overthink it. Just pick one and just take that little action. Yeah. And that makes such a difference, really. Coming out of my mind, really, that was really like a revelation to hear that.
Yeah, we're a lot more than just our minds. You know, it's like we're our mind, our spirit, our body, and they all relate. The way we think is affected by what we feel in our body. Pain in our stomach, feeling cold, feeling hungry. Those are all things that affect the way we think. And rather than thinking, I am sad, I am lonely, we could be cold in that moment. We could literally need a blanket. And if we put on a blanket, we might naturally feel less sad and lonely. And we don't realize how those physical environment factors that we feel in our body could affect our mental state. And it's good to attribute it correctly so that we don't think I am sad, but just think I am feeling sad. Oh, maybe if I have like soup, it'll change it. Oh, soup didn't change it today, so maybe I'm actually kind of sad right now. It's not that I'm cold, I'm actually sad. Now I could work on why am I feeling sad? Oh, it's because I haven't talked to someone for a while. So maybe I could call someone. But everyone's busy, so maybe I'll type up a message I'll send to someone tomorrow. There's all these, you could always think of one step to take action towards what you want.
There's one thing also that I find really helpful for me is to change as much as possible my self-talk. So, for example, talk to myself like I'm a friend instead of constantly criticizing myself.
Yeah. I actually have a series of songs I listen to whenever I'm not feeling good. And it starts off by Better in Time by Leona Lewis, saying things get better in time. Then I listen to The Voice Within by Christina Aguilera. And that song is about when there's no one else, look inside yourself like your oldest friend, trust the voice within. So it's saying, think of your own voice like a friend's voice. A friend would never say horrible things to you, and if they do, find new friends. But talk to yourself like you're your own friend. It's the voice within. And then the final song is Whitney Houston's Greatest Love of All, is Learning to Love Yourself. I listened to those three. And, you know, I'm glad you mentioned the self-talk, because I'm hoping after this you don't say, I am insecure. You say, I'm feeling insecure.
I have a habit of feeling insecure.
Yes.
That's going to be my new sentence.
And habits can always be changed.
Exactly. That will give me something to do step by step. So I was going to ask you next, what's your queer anthem?
Oh my gosh. I have to pick one.
Well, you can give as many as you like.
Okay. Well, I guess just my favorite song is Get Together by Madonna. But when it comes to really what makes me feel like the most queer, oh my gosh, I guess just Madonna. Like Madonna itself. She's my favorite artist. I love Lady Gaga so much too. But just Madonna's music and herself, she's so fierce and she's such a trailblazer. And she was fighting for gay rights way before it was cool. And so whenever I hear Madonna, it feels like an anthem. It reminds me, like, time to be fierce. You know, time to not worry of people saying I'm too feminine or too sassy or too over the top. It's like, that's what Madonna was, all the too much. She's even too masculine while she's too feminine at the same time. And whenever I hear her, she makes me feel, especially because you did say the word queer, I feel like queer compared to gay, queer is a much more open term. It's, when I think of someone who's queer, I think they wear a lot of dangly jewelry. They look very interesting and eccentric. And when I think of someone who's gay, I imagine someone who is, you know, fits the stereotype of a gay guy who maybe fits certain ways of dressing or fits certain ways of styling their hair. I like to think of myself as between both of them. I can be very, very queer on some days and very, very gay on some days. So yeah, Madonna is the overarching thing that I guess brings that out. Like, she brings that, like, out of the boxness in just who she is.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm a big Madonna fan.
Yeah, she's
And
really the best.
Oh yeah. Do you remember? Well, probably you were not around then. Probably '89 when Like a Prayer came out, and in the original CD, when I bought it, I remember seeing a leaflet about AIDS, and that was unbelievable at the time.
And another unbelievable thing is how Madonna didn't just fight for gay rights. She also fought for Black rights and cultural rights. Because in the Like a Prayer music video, she was sponsored by Coca-Cola. She was in a commercial.
That was a Pepsi.
Pepsi, yes. Sponsored by Pepsi. And she did a commercial for them, which, you already know about this. But to anyone listening, then she did the Like a Prayer music video, which is, for anyone who didn't see, please, after this podcast, Google it, because it shows her. There's a girl who gets attacked by a group of white men, and then a black man tries to come help her after, and the police arrest the black man. Then Madonna is dancing through grassy areas with burning crosses, which, at least in America, that is a racist symbol. People would put black crosses on black people's yards and burn them. So that was a very, very, out there thing for her to do. And then there was a black saint in the church, like a doll of him, and then he came to life and she kissed him. And so people were like, is she saying Jesus is black? Why is she talking about these racist things? We shouldn't talk about racism and all this stuff. She was fighting for everyone's rights back in the 80s when it wasn't celebrated to be woke back then. But she did that for every group of marginalized person. And no matter what, no matter if Madonna says some problematic things here and there, it does not erase all that she has done for Black people, queer people, Black queer people, women, people from other countries and continents. She's so amazing. And I think people who don't respect her really just don't know the extent of what she's done.
And the thing about diversity and fighting for rights and stuff like that, it's been from the beginning, because from the very first videos, I think the one for Borderline, her boyfriend in the video is Hispanic. So that was quite something risky at the time.
Yeah, it's so interesting how even interracial relationships, now it's so normal, but back then, her just doing that little thing was so good. And it's representation that we think of nowadays. She was doing it naturally. And she wasn't doing it as a PR tactic. Even if she was, who cares? Because she changed the world by it.
Yeah, that's very true. So other than Madonna or even music, can you recommend any sort of maybe book or podcast or show to watch? Any queer thing to watch?
Well, for anyone who hasn't seen it, I would highly recommend Paris is Burning. That documentary, it is about the ballroom scene in the 80s, which is especially for Black queer people in America who would go at these secret, not underground, but secret areas and have these balls, which they would go in beautiful gowns, beautiful outfits. They would vogue and do these shows. And the reason for that is because back in the day, they were like, we'll never be rich. We'll never have high status. We'll never be in the media. But us going to these secret late night ballroom events, it's our own way of being our own celebrities and taking trophies and making a name for ourselves and being a legend or an icon. And Paris is Burning shows us all the different identities. It shows us back in the 80s, trans women. It shows us gay men. It shows us Black people of all those groups. It shows us Latino people, white people, all the things. And it really shows not where it started, but an earlier phase of where we were at and how far we've come from it. It even shows violence in there. It shows, someone dies during the filming of it. They don't die, they get murdered, actually. And it's really surreal to have that all be included in a documentary. So Paris is Burning, anyone who hasn't seen that, please check it out.
Yeah, because then that will provide some sort of backstory to the series Pose, but also Drag Race.
Mm-hmm. Drag Race for me was a big connector to the gay community. I actually started watching it because I wanted gay friends, and after I came out, it helped me connect with other gays. So yes, I would. Paris is Burning is if you want your own self-help, but if you want to connect with the gay community and have conversations with people around you, I would recommend Drag Race. And Pose, it's a fun thing too. I love Pose.
Yeah, true. So, well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Pierre.
To me. Did you want to share anything else or add anything?
Well, I think the last thing I would add is just for anyone who would be interested in hearing more from me, they could find me on all social media platforms at Kevin Kasir, spelled Kasir. And I post daily videos on there. If you're interested in coaching with me, I do offer a 3-month coaching program, which you could message me on social media about. But I think that would just be the only thing. I spent so much time talking the rest of it. So that'll just be it. If you want to hear me talking more, that is how you find me on social media, especially Instagram at Kevin Kasir.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much again. Lovely, lovely, lovely to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you, Pierre. I absolutely loved it. And, it was so nice to be able to have this talk with you and to hear more of how you and I are more similar than we thought. Speaking with you actually helps me feel more comfortable in my porn addiction. And it helps me know, like, oh, there are even some more steps I could take, or I just don't have to shame myself as much about it because I'm reminded that it's not just a me problem, it is like a societal problem. And yeah, like, I just want to thank you. I just want to thank you for sharing that vulnerable part of you as well.
Pleasure. I mean, that's, like you said, is good to help other people, but I also do it for myself because chipping at that shaming, is a daily thing, really. So, thank you for acknowledging that.
Yeah, thank you, Pierre.
And thanks everybody for listening, watching. Please comment, share, send some love.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.